In the year 1997, the future is in chaos and turmoil. Mankind is on the brink of extinction. Brave survivors band together and build a time displacement apparatus to receive a signal from a parallel future. This transmission is the Vundacast.
There's one team that kicks ass. They're assembled. They're the Vundacast. Never back down from the brass. Always start first. Never finish last. Had a mock speed. Bit too fast. Oh no, they're out of gas. It's okay there. Just a podcast. They're the greatest. We're the Vundacast.
Welcome to the Vundacast, the official podcast of Vundablog.com, the home of all things Vundacast and Vundablog related. Not only whatever, but today we are the home of the top horror movies of 2022. It is said by many that this is a banner year for horror. I don't know if I'll say that because I think enough people have said it. But I will say that I am your host, Steven. And with me today is our reigning, defending, our unbeatable Trials of Trivia champion and non-binary champion, the they of theys. D-Rock is in the house.
What up, D-Rock in the house?
I still can't believe that you won.
I can't believe I for sure, like when Lauren was going in reverse through the rankings, I like every name she read I thought was gonna be me. Like I thought it was gonna be last, then I thought it was gonna be second to last, all the way up to first.
It's I got that update mid-game after Frank's round. And
Frank fucking like destroyed it. I thought for sure Frank was gonna win.
Frank, I thought was gonna Mike Tyson everyone, but D-Rock came in with Christmas characters and just annihilated.
Yeah.
And with us also today, the one of two people, other than wait, I'm wrong. Hold on, wait, that's not a
What?
Okay, I'll just do the normal spiel.
What?
I was gonna do some rare Vundacast trivia for you, but I realized it doesn't really apply. I already have to.
We're doing a great job keeping this under an hour.
I know that's what I do best. Hey, this is the intro. I said the talking should be under an hour of the.
Oh, okay.
The intro could be like 20 minutes. Come on. I am still your host, Steven, and with me today is the beautiful, the talented, the always hilarious, the chicken nugget, the motherfucking, the queen of queens, the cohortress,
Right.
Dani is here.
That's very a lot of intro.
Yo, you deserve the most intro
Yeah.
out of everyone. Even though you still haven't won a trivia competition.
Still haven't.
You've dishonored this house.
Apparently.
I should make you come
I'm
up
sorry,
with
I
the next
don't know
trivia.
more about.
Well, no one has except for me and George.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to like arrange classes where Frank just teaches everyone about Sonic.
Pick a topic we know as little about as possible, so it's fair.
We're talking about the top 2022 horror movies, and I am so hyped. It is
Xena.
It is the end of 2022.
Did you just hear Xena?
Yes.
Goodbye 2022, Xena. I agree. And next year, 2023 is going to be even better, even brighter. The seeds of great things are already planted for all the wonderful things that we're going to do in 2023.
Here's hoping.
And we're going to start off, we're going to end the year strong. D-Rock has so graciously watched so many 2022 horror films.
So many.
That, you know, they've inspired us to do the top 2022 horror films. D-Rock, where do we start?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just because I like tried really hard to watch so many horror movies that came out this year, but it really does feel like not just in terms of like, Terrifier and Smile and a bunch of movies that really did really well, but like just so many fucking really good movies. I'll get to a bunch more at the end, but I think I'll start with my personal top 10 in descending order, I think is the way to say that. Starting with number 10. Number 10, I put X and Pearl together because they
So
are
you started off by cheating.
I started off by
Cheating!
cheating. Yes, of course.
Congratulations.
That's what we
Welcome
do
to
here.
the
That's Vundacast. How do you think I won 4 trials of trivia? Um, X and Pearl because they're part of the same story, and also because they kind of make each other better. Especially like Pearl, when you see that Pearl, the whole movie is just about her trying to escape this house, and then realizing that in X she is still living there, like fucking 50, 60 years later, whatever it is. Really is fucked up. And also like the parallels between her, she sees like one of the first porn movies ever made, and like it's kind of parallels with her, how she feels about the people making the porn in her house in X. I liked X better. Just there's a couple of like just beautiful sequences that just blew my mind, and I love how it deals with like the moralization of sexuality, and Jenna Ortega's character getting to have her moment of like saying fuck you to her boyfriend, and being in the porno. That's my number 10. Number
Yeah,
9.
Pearl or X didn't make either of our lists,
Yeah,
even though I think they're really, on any other year
right.
they would have definitely. I think Ty West definitely showed this year that he's like, if it wasn't already known, he's like a master horror storyteller.
I think that Pearl and X have their strengths. I think in terms of I think X stands alone better as a
Yes.
whole complete story. You don't need to know Pearl to know, her story. You
Right.
don't need to watch Pearl the prequel to know what happens to this woman in X. It's very apparent this is a woman that got trapped somewhere. I don't think that it's subtle in that film,
Yeah.
her talking about it. What's good about Pearl is Mia Goth, basically, and
Yeah.
also the change of scenery to once again play with, you know, that really bright, colorful aesthetic. That that Argento style horror that is not bleak and dark, and because even X, because they play so much at night, there's a lot of like nighttime scenes. They don't have a lot, like they have some daytime work, but they work a lot with night. But like with Pearl, so much of it takes place bright daylight, and exposing sort of like it juxtaposes itself, this really beautiful fairy tale like world, like farm life that looks like an old Hollywood movie, but far from Hollywood things are happening in this place. That was the best part to me. The technical aspects of Pearl were the best part of Pearl and Mia Goth. The rest of it was kind of a very by the numbers sort of like
I thought Pearl was really fun. Like
it was fun. I'm
that's
just
the
saying,
one I
like I
preferred
think
more.
that X is, in terms of horror, I don't know. I just think that like Pearl to me. Some people say, "Oh, I could have watched Pearl without watching." I don't agree. Pearl
No.
can't exist without
No.
X.
I don't.
And
Yeah,
I
like
don't think
you
that
can
Pearl should
you
have come
can
out first.
you can
Like,
absolutely watch X without Pearl. You
ever seen
cannot
Pearl
watch Pearl without X,
without
in
seeing
my opinion.
exactly. I think it's a very good like addendum to the X story, and I think that there's some interesting technical stuff in it that I like. But yeah,
I think the best thing about Pearl is how much it enhances X.
yes,
That's like my favorite thing about it.
Which is always a good thing for
Yeah.
a prequel to do, is enhance the story.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. My number 9 movie is a movie that I got off of Steven's list, actually, and I hadn't seen until he told me, he showed me his list, and I went and watched You Are Not My Mother, directed by Kate Dolan. Such a fucking awesome, cool movie, like sort of slow burn, kind of like, changeling movie about, and the performance by the mother is just out of this world. The girl's performance is amazing too, but the mother and the two scenes that really stick out in my head are the two scenes where she dances with her. The first one, very much not threatening. It's just kind of creepy that she's now in such a good mood for some reason. And then the second one, fucking horrifying with that music playing. I love movies that like make you sit and listen to like really happy-go-lucky songs while something horrifying is happening on screen. It's such an uncomfortable position to be in.
It's a nice dissonance always
Yes.
to have, yeah, like the horror of what's visually happening versus the joy of the music.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna put You Are Not My Mother #2 on my list, because part of the things that really stood out to me about the films that resonated with me this year are the ones that really caught me off guard and like by surprise. So maybe that's why Pearl and X didn't quite make my list, because they had been so overhyped before I'd seen them. And You Are Not My Mother, I think, is just a really strong film, and I don't know, I feel like it has a lot to say.
I've been a big proponent of Irish horror for a while, because I feel like they do a lot of very interesting stuff with their own mythology, as well as religious, like Catholic iconography and things like that.
Well, Catholic and like Irish, there's a lot of like the pagan aspect.
Oh, that's what I mean. Their own mythology being the pagan.
Yeah, right.
The Catholic stuff being the
Right.
colonization.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Yeah. It is. I mean, like, and so, there was a movie we saw a while back where there was like literal angels and stuff, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was like about a haunted house in Ireland. It was really good. Anyway, I can't remember the name, but it put that there's
Angels,
a placeholder.
Haunted House Island.
Yeah, don't worry about it. But like, I really have been into some Irish horror, and they love to do a good changeling horror movie. Like, there's been several that I've seen where they've done stuff like this, and I think that this is a really strong one. And it's just always like really fun to see different cultures using their, myths, their stories to tell different types of horror that kind of transverse into a very like universal idea, like the idea of someone you love becoming a different person.
A dark song.
Thank you. A dark song. That was a really cool movie, and it's Irish, and it has a lot of Catholicism.
From 2016, 2017.
Thank you. And so yeah, they really do a lot, to explore that idea of like, your relatives, and it can be very metaphorical to a lot of things, mental illness, drug use, tragic circumstance. But I really liked the way this story went, because you do see like they kind of intersect in that idea that there's like this trauma that's going on in their lives that causes, this sort of like entity to invade. And that's, it's always a good time. And I think the performances were just excellent. And I think I put that on number 1, 2, 3, 4. That's like 7 on my list.
7.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
If it matters.
Okay, so my number 8 on my list is a movie that I don't think you guys have seen, Fresh, directed by Mimi Cave.
No, I know. I need to see Fresh. I haven't seen it. I had friends recommend it to me, but
it's really, really good. It's I saw it like when it first kind of came out on Hulu, and went into it not really knowing anything about it, which is a great way to go into a movie in this genre. But this is the end of the year, and we have to talk about this movie, so I'm gonna spoil what kind of movie it is. It's funny because like in the last couple of years, there's been this sort of rise of very like artful cannibal movies.
Yeah.
I think, you know, it really started like over 20 years ago. Claire Denis is like an amazing art house filmmaker, and she made this movie called Trouble Every Day about cannibalism as like an affliction, like a sickness that they're trying to find a cure for and stuff like that. It's really interesting. But the current sort of renaissance seems to have started with Raw by Julia
Yeah.
Ducournau, which is also an amazing, another one that, like Bones and All, sort of frames it as like a coming of age story. And so Fresh is actually a sort of satire of the rich, that they have this like it's this guy who like captures women and cuts things off of them and sells them as like packaged meat to rich people for like an astronomical price. And it's, you know, the concept is amazing, but the performances really like nail it home. And there's so many really cool, there's an amazing sequence where they're like dancing in the living room that just like is so mesmerizing. And I also love, I love movies where the title card comes up like an hour into the movie or like a half hour into the movie. Like this movie, like the title card doesn't come up until like there's a whole lot of stuff where you're like, what kind of movie is this? And once the part happens where you're like, okay, this kind of movie, that's where the title card comes up. My favorite title card is Mandy, where I think it happens like more than halfway into the movie because it doesn't come up until he's about to go kill these people, you know?
Yeah.
Which I love. But yeah, Fresh by Mimi Cave, amazing.
We have a whole
movie.
conversation about the interest in cannibalism horror, which I feel is a direct, like, because there's what's interesting about cannibalism is there's like different, literally within it has its own subgenres.
Oh yeah.
Because you can go for like zombies, right? Which is a very like rote kind of cannibalism. You can go for the ever problematic, like, you know, tribal cannibalism,
Right,
you
Cannibal
know, where people
Holocaust.
sort of like, yeah, like explore the fear of the other. And then there's like this kind of cannibalism that's very like, exactly, like it's in the, I would say it's in the tradition of like Jonathan Swift, like
Oh
talking about
yeah.
like the metaphor of like eating babies. Like, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like, or it can be also very sexual, like, because there's a lot of weird conversation to be had about that. And within our like own psychology, we talk a lot about like thinking someone's so cute, we want to eat them. Like, we have that already. We have the thing. Like,
It is a very intimate thing.
It is, yeah. So it's a very interesting thing to see how it manifests. And I want to see that movie because I heard Sebastian Stan's performance is really good.
He's fucking amazing, yeah. And the female lead is also fantastic. But yeah, he is haunting as fuck.
It's nice to see him get out of his Bucky Barnes.
Yeah.
Do some acting.
Sure. Okay, so then I have number 7 is Alone with You, directed by Emily Bennett and Justin Brooks. I just found this movie. I have a sort of a similar theme with you guys on my list, that most of the movies on my list are movies that I didn't hear shit about until I saw them, or like saw somebody like say one thing that I was like, ooh, I should see that. And like other than X and Pearl, like everything else is like
shout out a lot of random Twitter posts and a lot of TikToks from the horror talk community turned me on to some of my favorite movies of the year.
Shout out Horror Talk.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, Alone with You is actually a movie I didn't hear anything about from anybody. I just found it on Shudder and was like, that sounds interesting, and watched it. And it's this really, really awesome, sort of claustrophobic, hallucinatory. I don't even know how to like necessarily like. It's just so interesting what they do with this, like, and subverting narrative, and so and like putting things out of time, chronological order, and like subverting what you think is going on, and like it's just really, really, really well done, and I really, really enjoyed it. Definitely would recommend it.
Cool.
Shudder has so many good movies that every once in a while there's something that's like so quality that just falls under the radar.
I was gonna say, I think I think you should definitely credit Shudder with being part of why horror is getting more and more
Absolutely.
mainstream attention again, beyond
Especially with their original film.
Yeah. I think that they're doing the fact that we have Shudder as a channel, like, I know we all got a scare when there were some layoffs happening at AMC.
Yeah.
We're so terrified for Shudder, because seriously, Shudder's a really important app channel, like,
Absolutely.
like part of that. It curating horror is so important. It really gets to show people like how massively diverse the genre is, how much you can do with it, how many different ways you can be scared or thrilled. And I think that's definitely part of the kind of resurgence and popularity of horror.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, and they not just, like, if you just took like the 2022 Shudder movies are like amazing, but like they're releasing movies that might not get made otherwise. A lot of their 2022 stuff. They're also curating and bringing in like a bunch of stuff that probably no one would ever see.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for all these old,
exactly.
like weird, it's kind of like the Criterion Channel of horror. Like,
it is,
they curate it so well, and they have so many like crazy, obscure, esoteric
and it had
movies.
humble beginnings. I remember when it started, and they were like just trying to get it like off the ground. And like the humble beginnings of it to now is just really impressive how they've managed to grow.
Yeah, we found out about Shudder, and then we were subscribed, and then at a convention, they had a Shudder booth, and they were like had the nicest person working there, and it was just like a great representation of the company at this random con. And there was recently layoffs at Shudder of some of the people who'd really helped define and establish what Shudder has become, and I hope that the app doesn't lose quality or the prestige that it so rightly deserves.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Number 6.
Number 6 is another Shudder. I don't know if it's a Shudder original or a Shudder exclusive, but this I just watched. I think it was yesterday. This movie called A Wounded Fawn, directed by Travis Stevens, which was super fucking interesting. Like just the way that it's one of those that you think it's one movie and then like halfway through becomes a totally different movie, and these like old sort of witchy gods start torture, and like they set it up in the very beginning with this like statue at an auction of these like old gods that torture people until they atone for their sins.
Nice.
And ultimately sort of, that sort of manifests in this really amazing way. It's another one of those that, totally caught me off guard. I had like heard a couple things about it. I think I saw it on like the Rotten Tomatoes, like top horror of the year, top rated. And I was like, oh, I got to check that out. And it's so good.
And it's, I think that's like a later in the year release, so it hasn't had a lot of time.
Yeah, it just came out like a couple weeks ago.
Might get more buzz once next year.
Yeah. So A Wounded Fawn, nice. Your number 5?
Very cool. My number 5 we might want to wait on that because my number 5 movie is Adult Swim Yule Log.
That's my number 5 movie.
Oh wait, we're gonna talk.
We might want to talk about that last
we can
because
talk about that now. We're here.
talk about it now. All right, we'll talk about it now.
It's in the
Talk
podcast.
about taking you by surprise. My only problem was I wish I had been able to get the experience of putting on HBO Max and be like, oh, let me put on a Yule log, and then suddenly being taken by surprise by what the fuck is going on. I actually watched it because you two were like, holy shit, the best horror movie of 2022 just dropped on
Yeah,
HBO Max.
I went slightly viral with my reaction to it
Yeah.
just because I was so impressed by it. And of course, I got a lot of people be like, "The best, you're ridiculous." So I had to like talk about like
The
I think,
budget.
I think people don't understand like there's a lot go up around what that movie was. Like, just first of all, like I just think that a movie that can kind of sort of completely come from left field and surprise you with any sort of like interesting ideas, weird, that's what someone said. It was a really good comment on Twitter that was just like, make weird art. And I like, that's
Yes.
what I really pride this movie for doing, just making weird art that some people are going to watch and dismiss immediately because they're like, what? But then you don't know how that's going to feel in like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Some people are going
Right.
to watch and they're going to get it right away, what you're trying to do. And that's what I think has been really a boon for Adult Swim, has been to try to fight to curate weird art, which is ever always had a struggle, but especially in this climate is just a diminishing return to like make weird art and to like put it out there, unless you have some sort of prestige company backing you to be like, no, look at my weird art.
Yeah.
It's like to be on your own and not getting the A24 clout behind you and being like, look at this weird art. Like, it's so hard to do that, to have the convictions. And so like Ulog really just came in and like with a nothing budget, guys, like probably under 100K.
I'm gonna try to get some hard facts.
I'm trying to get some hard facts. We assume under $100,000 for a feature-length horror film with so much jam-packed stuff. I don't even want to like talk. I don't want to spoil it because I just think people should try to experience it as empty as much as possible. Obviously, like now, part of the thing is getting in people, watch this Ulog movie. It's definitely not about a Ulog, but and what I find interesting is how what will happen as years go by, because will people click on Adult Swim Ulog every Christmas? Thinking they're gonna see something and then they see something completely different. Like, will it kind of get that it's, I don't know, we'll see what happens to it. I think
This is my number one film of the year. I've gone insane for one movie. I spent the whole movie like turning to Danielle and looking at her in just like shock at what I was seeing. And that so rarely happens when watching a movie, is having such genuine shock and having no idea where something is going.
That I will, and that's the thing. Another strength of this film: you will not know where it is going at any point. You will think you know. While we were watching it, I was making calls like, "Oh, this is going to happen next," or this, and every time they took it, I was like, "No, that's not what happened." And for some people, they would go, "Just because the movie doesn't mean it's good." I don't think that that's why the movie's good, but you have to admit, in this day and age, where people literally applaud a Marvel film for having a cameo of a guy that they liked from like one comic book 15 years ago and be like, that's so innovative. This movie is actually innovative. Like, this is actually like, you are not gonna know what you're gonna get in this movie. You are not gonna know, and you're gonna watch it and you're gonna might want to rewatch it after you watch it.
No, you kind of have to. You kind of have to, and like it's and also like the fact that it's not just weird for the sake of being weird. Like this movie is about so many things. It's about you know,
No,
indigenous.
don't say anything. Don't. No.
Okay, I don't want to. Yeah, okay. Let me
Don't
not
say it.
spoil
The
it.
movie's about a Yule log.
I
I
will
will-
just say
yeah.
this. I will say this. This movie is the Everything Everywhere All at Once of horror movies. That
It
is.
is. It
a
is.
very, I think that's an apt comparison.
That is an apt
Hey,
comparison.
I'm really worried about a lot of things regarding this movie because I care about it so much. One, I'm so worried that this is the kind of movie that the people who took over at Warner Brothers and HBO Max
Won't let people make anymore.
are just going to like take off of streaming and
Mhm.
we'll
Yeah.
never see it again except for like in
Oh my
some
God, yeah.
illegal manner because they don't want to pay residuals.
I would encourage everyone to
to
start going physical again
these
because
wonderful
it's
actors.
getting crazy.
So I want to push real hard for a physical release
yes.
Yeah.
of this movie. And I'm also worried too because I think this might be, I don't know if this is the end of an era for Adult Swim. They recently lost the head of Adult Swim for a long time, Mike Lazo,
Wow.
who was responsible for so many interesting artists
That's true.
getting opportunities
Yeah.
at Adult Swim. And I know that a lot of Adult Swim nerds are kind of freaking out because
Yeah.
there's only like there's only a handful of shows that are announced for next year, and it's like the smallest like
I'm telling you,
crop of things coming
weird
out.
art is struggling, dude. Weird art is struggling, especially in this digital world.
I think there's still plenty of it out there. I just think that it's not all gonna fall under one banner so easily. So
Well, that's
we
fine.
gotta
But
seek
what
it out
I
and
mean
find
is,
it.
yeah. But I'm saying like that's the thing is it's not. There were places for it,
Yeah, there's
and
less
it's like
avenues.
the more you lose, yeah, it's like they're kind of like the redheaded stepchildren of all these companies, and if these companies want
Yeah.
to cut them off, like that's what we're gonna lose.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
there's
in
an
the early-
audience for this stuff.
In the early 2010s, Adult Swim was like everybody was fucking watching Adult Swim when they had, Aqua Teen and Robot Chicken and all the like Powerhouse, and then they started coming out with all these
Adult
other
Swim is
things.
a huge reason why anime
Yeah.
is as popular as it is, and not just like kid friendly anime, like to show people the value of the genre of the medium of animation is a huge part of that.
And taking it back to Yule log, I think that they've done a profound thing, and they're cementing their legacy at Adult Swim by attaching their official name
Mm-hmm.
to this film
Yeah.
as sort of a statement of like, this is what our brand can represent, and the strength of our brand is going to sell this thing
Mm-hmm.
that is 199% of the time is innocuous, but when we do it is going to be transformative art.
It's true. They could have called it Casper Kelly's Yule log. They could have called it, Christmas Yule log. They could have called it so many things. They call it Adult Swim Yule log, so you understand. Okay, this is what I'm getting.
And it's also called The Fireplace. So
that's
so
true.
that's
also AKA The Fireplace.
It's moving. Casper Kelly, you're a genius, and you're gonna see some more Yule log content coming up.
Yes, exciting things maybe happen.
Very exciting.
So that was my number 1. That was your number 5.
That's my
and
number
that was your
5.
number 5.
My number 5.
So that averages out to the
Yeah.
best movie ever.
Yeah.
Steven Math.
Good, perfect. Steven Math.
Okay, number
2 + 2 is 5.
Number 4, I have. This is one of 2 movies in my top 5 that I saw based on tweets by Michael Kennedy, who wrote Freaky.
Mm-hmm.
This is called You Won't Be Alone, directed by Goran Stalevsky. I think it's filmed in like Serbia and in a language kind of in that vein.
Serbian?
Yeah, I don't know what the language of Serbia is, but
that's it. We're canceled.
Yeah.
In Serbia.
Yeah, right. This is another one that like really took me by surprise.
Serbian, official language of Serbia.
Is it Serbian? Okay, I didn't want to just like assume because like sometimes that's not necessarily the case. But This is another one that really took me by surprise. It's this sort of motherhood narrative that turns into this like coming of age narrative with really creepy sort of like, I guess they're kind of like changeling creatures, but just the way that it's done. It's a long movie, but it's long for a reason because it goes through so many different stages of this sort of story of this girl whose mother makes a deal with this changeling and then kind of fucks her over, and she escapes the changeling, but the changeling keeps coming back to like tell her about how she's gonna fail at this, and like, and everyone's gonna find out and shit. Just a really, really it's definitely like an elevated quote unquote horror movie. But it's really, really beautifully shot, and the performances are amazing, and just like such a well-made movie. Can't recommend it highly enough, and that's only my number 4. So
Damn, is this the year of the changeling? Oh my god.
No, yeah.
there's some stuff out. I mean,
There's
no,
been an uptick in movies about changelings recently. Like, and it's been an uptick in trend in horror. Like,
yeah, we saw A Christmas Horror Story the other day that had some changeling stuff in it, right?
Yeah, that's from 2012.
But that's, yeah, a couple years ago. But yeah,
All the kids that grew up on Christmas Horror Story are like, I can't wait to do my art house changeling.
yeah.
no, I think it's like with a lot of like, you know, horror has trends, and I think
Mhm.
that's sort of come, like I said, come into the zeitgeist. I think because
It's
more and more people are seeing like horror coming out of the Ireland and that area, and they do a lot of, and they have a lot of stories about like fae folk, and fae have had a big resurgence in popularity recently, like among people, so that would make them interested in mythology.
I also think it's a classy monster.
It is a classy monster.
People like a classy monster.
They do like the classy
For
monster.
sure. I think there's like a thing that happens in horror where like everyone's always kind of looking for the subgenre that hasn't been done to death yet.
Yeah.
And like right now it's cannibalism, you know, and then
Because zombies have been overdone.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean zombies, vampires, all those things, you know, are so done, so overdone. But
Next couple of years, it'll be Yule logs, baby.
Yule logs, oh my god, we got to make our
I think
Yule
vampires
logs
are gonna make a comeback because of Interview with the Vampire. The series is doing
Oh yeah,
really
the
well.
series. I've heard it's gonna be really good.
And I think that movie, The Invitation, did pretty okay. That new one that came out. We have to watch that.
We have not seen it.
No, we
I've
have not.
heard
You're
good
number
things
3.
about it. Yeah. Number 3 is another one that really took me by surprise on Netflix called Hellhole, directed by Bartosz M. Kowalski. This is a Polish movie that is, it's, oh man, I love this movie. It's kind
I
of,
have it on my list. I want to see it.
yeah,
Yes,
you should check it out. It's so, I love it. It's kind of like a subversion of the sort of exorcist demon horror kind of genre, with a little bit of crime drama thrown in there. And I don't want to give away too much because the ending of this movie is like one of my favorite endings of a movie I've ever seen.
Oh damn!
Whoa.
High praise.
So yeah, don't skip out on Hellhole. Fucking super good.
Whoa, we recommend this film to J.J. Abrams. Watch out.
Okay, my number 2 is the other movie in my top 5 that was recommended by Michael Kennedy. Another glorious send up of the rich, The Menu, directed by Mark Mylod. This is another one that I went into like I probably wouldn't have even seen it except for the fact that I saw that Michael Kennedy tweet and I was like, oh, let me check this out and stuff. But I had like no expectations for it and was really kind of blown away by this movie. It's freaking hysterical. It is the best paced movie I've seen all year. Maybe one of the best paced movies I've ever like. It's just the pacing is so pitch perfect, and it relies on that pacing a lot. For I mean, it's one of those that builds layers of horror and terror and layers of meaning and layers of what's really going on, and you really don't get a sense until like really late on of what's really going on in this movie. And there's so many little twists and turns, and the performances are amazing. Anya Taylor-Joy is amazing. Nicholas Hoult is hilarious as like the fanboy of this famous chef. Ralph Fiennes is great as the chef. It's just really, really well put together, and it really took me by surprise how good it was. So that's my number 2.
Cool.
And
That's another movie we haven't seen. I feel like a lot of your stuff on your list, you haven't seen it yet. I've been trying a lot.
I kept telling you.
I've seen a lot of horror movies, but yeah, there was a kind of a glut of stuff.
There were so many, and you can see how many honorable mentions I have.
Yeah, I think part of the reason too is because a lot of things were delayed because of the pandemic. So I wonder if we'll see sort of a leveling out, because I just feel like there was a ton of stuff that got released this year because they were holding back on it. Yeah. Or they were struggling to finish it because of,
Right. Yeah.
To the shutdown, not the pandemic. We're still in a pandemic, so the shutdown.
Yeah. All right, and my number 1 horror movie of 2022 is Hatching, directed by Hannah Bergholm, a Finnish movie. Finland is as in Finnish as in Finland. This movie definitely, like, I kind of knew a little bit about it going in, and it's still just totally blindsided me with what this movie really was about. It's about a lot, like there's a lot of interpretations you can make of this movie. Even I was talking to Danielle about this. Like, I kind of zeroed in on the themes of motherhood and mothering a creature that you don't really want, or that's kind of unlovable by anyone else other than its mother. And I just like the creature design is fucking incredible. The set design, there's this wallpaper in their house that is so like Kubrickian, and like the evolution of the monster, or quote unquote monster, and the sort of, the sort of Frankenstein-esque thing of like monsters that aren't really monsters, they're just sort of misunderstood in some way. And then that ending is, I'm not going to give away the ending, of course, but like it's a very powerful ending and a really like the best direction they could have taken this story. I think it's just such a great movie.
So Hatching is actually my number 2. And a lot of like the horror movies I put on my top, I had an emotional response to them, like to whatever the emotional response was. And like Hatching, I had a very emotional response to. And I interpret, and you honed in on the motherhood. I honed in on the coming of age, sort of body changing, going through puberty, growing up under the, and I looked at it from the motherhood perspective of having a parent an oppressive parent, basically, and having this expectations and the sort of like trapped in your girlhood, but you're going through adolescence stuff. I saw a lot of that, and I think that is one of the stronger themes in the story. And I really had an emotional response to the creature itself. Like I don't, for whatever reason, like Steven can tell you, like I started crying when she first started taking care of it. I was like so worried about it. I was like, so like, I don't know. I to me it was, and the horror aspect is there, but just a lot of the horror for me doesn't come from the monster itself. It comes from the atmosphere outside the monster, like the familial relationships, the relationship between the mother and the daughter. And it's such a well done movie. Like the creature, like you said, the creature design is out of this world. The performances, the the themes that it tackles, so well done. Like the mom is terrifying. The mom is a monster in and of herself.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating to watch, because I really, oh my god, this is one of the strongest movies of the year. And I think it's that like more people haven't seen this movie and really understand like how beautiful it is and how like interesting it is.
Yeah, this is one of my honorable mentions, and the creature design is just so, makes you so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That in a way that I don't think a lot of creatures in horror are able to really portray. And big props to, what is her name? Hannah
Bergholm.
Hannah
Bergholm, bro.
Yeah,
They
because
got
the monster, like, I mean, you say monster, but like, it's really, I mean, it's not
not a
menacing.
monster.
It's
Yeah,
not.
like
It's just really like grotesque, but it's not really menacing in any way.
I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's just
a term.
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, I'm agreeing with you. But yeah.
Dani's top 10.
My top 10.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we've had some intersection,
So
but
just go through.
I'll go through my number 10 is Barbarian by Zach Kreger. Though I don't know, whatever. It's number 10 is like that's changing all the time, but for now I stuck with Barbarian by Zach Kreger, because I really enjoyed the way that movie used, misdirection to throw you off of what you were going to see next. I really enjoyed the way he played on the themes of, female terror, like what would frighten a woman walking into, a situation like this. And I think that was, I loved, and I liked how he used that to sort of throw you off to what's going to happen next in the story. The truth is that I walked into this movie thinking it was going to be a completely different story. So what's funny is Adult Swim Yule Log is far more in the vein of what I thought Barbarian was going to be like. I really did. I thought it was going to be far stranger.
I've been seeing comparisons between those two.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be far stranger and far more like I guess psychedelic, or I don't know, whatever, pick a term. I don't want to give away too much, but like Barbarian is not that, but it is its own thing. And I think
weird art.
My favorite parts of it are definitely like where I feel like they misdirect you and then sort of turn you on your head to like, put that, like to put you in a place where like, what the heck's going on? And I really enjoyed that. And I think that was the strongest part.
Barbarian is my number 10 as well. I've been a big fan of Zach Kreger from his days on The Whitest Kids You Know. And I was really excited to see what his version of a horror movie looks like.
Yeah.
And I think it obviously, if I'm grading Barbarian against Adult Swim Yule Log, Barbarian has a lot more resources, even though it is a small film, than Adult Swim Yule Log had. And that's really like the thing that takes Adult Swim Yule Log all the way to my number one.
That's the thing, is like the thing about Barbarian is Barbarian has a small budget, but Adult Swim has a micro budget. Like I do think, to get pretentiously film bro-y about stuff sometimes it does matter to see what people can do with the resources they have. It does matter to see how much they can do with so little, and in terms of skill and in terms of like set, film, and it's like it gives, I think it can give a movie an edge, you know what I mean? Like, as I've said, if Yule Log had a $10 million budget, I would not be going, ooh, Yule Log is so good. I'm like, what the hell did y'all do with $10 million?
Well, if they had a $10 million budget, it would have been a fucking like super production.
It doesn't have that. It has such a small, it's so compressed in terms of finances and time and resources that it's just so impressive. And Barbarian has a small budget, so it's very impressive, but that's maybe why, yeah, like he said, why it Yulog edged up farther for us than Barbarian did, because that alone is an impressive feat. I feel like my number 9 isn't technically a 2022 movie. Wait.
I also have things to say about Barbarian.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought okay.
Yeah, this is actually one of my honorable mentions. It easily could have been my number 10. I've actually watched this movie 5 times.
Damn.
I mean, there's something about it that is like really rewatchable. And the thing about rewatching that movie, like the first time I watched it, I was like, you know, it's hard to really sink into the experience the first time around because you're like, what in the fuck is happening right now? But rewatching it a couple of times, I was able to zero in on some really interesting stuff. There's some interesting themes going on. There's like really, you know, the way that they kind of explore, you know, Justin Long's character and his transgressions and whether, you know, it's a while from when you find out what he's accused of to where you like find out, like when you hear him describe like what actually happened and you're like, oh, okay.
That's also where I think Adult Swim Yule gets the edge for me versus Barbarian, is I feel like Barbarian handled a lot of interesting topics in a very like not to say preachy way, but in a way where it's telling you how to feel about it. And I feel like Adult Swim Yule handles all of these topics without ever being preachy and letting the viewer kind of bring to it what they're gonna think about it.
You know? I don't think that Barbarian does that so much in the first half as much as the second half. Like I kind of feel like Justin Long's character, like once we get there, I don't know. It's meant to do something. I do kind of sit there and go, does this become a revenge movie? Like when Justin Long gets on the scene based on what happens to him, you know, does this sort of and also long like, game revenge film?
One of the scenes that is really even more powerful to set like on rewatch is when he finds the father and starts going through the tapes and the like level of disgust that he has watching the tapes. I feel like there's something about like the position that he's in that movie that he becomes like so reviled. He like sees almost a reflection of himself to some extent in that I think is really fascinating. And also I love the sort of moment where he seems to have a moment of clarity and then maybe not so much.
Yeah, like I don't know, like I think preachy is like too far of a term, but I get what you're saying. Like it's giving a lot less. Yeah, it's more overt. It's more of like, okay, we know where we stand here, and that's fine. All right. Yeah. So should I move on?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I don't know if my number 9 is a 2022 movie. But we said.
What's your number 9?
Off season.
That's 2022. Yeah.
Okay. Because
I go by, was it released to the public?
Okay.
To the public,
okay,
not like a fucking, you know, film festival, but to the public.
To the public. Okay, that matters. Okay, so Off Season by Mickey Keating.
Available on Shudder, one of the many underrated Shudder gems.
Sure.
I really loved this movie because what I like, first of all, I like it because it has a very Lovecraftian feel to it, which is always a good time. I think, like, you know, Lovecraft as an author can get probably, but like Lovecraft as a genre is the genre he created is such a cool thing to play in, and I think it's always interesting to see how it plays out. And I loved what I liked about the story is there's I think a lot of the fear or like the terror in it is the sense of like fate that cannot be escaped in it. No matter how hard she tries. And so like that in of itself there's a sense of dread throughout the whole film where you're like, what the hell's going on? It's really beautifully shot. It looks very different to a lot of like even horror films set near the ocean. It has a very did we figure out that it was filmed in Florida or no, filmed somewhere like
I think the movie they say that they're in Florida. I don't know if we confirmed if they were actually in Florida.
And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it was like set. I thought I looked it up. But it had a very familiar, in terms of like for me where I live, it has very familiar terrain, which I don't think gets explored as much as it should in film, because like Florida is a spooky ass place. And there's a lot of good options to make horror in like Florida, like North Florida, all over Florida. Like there's very weird feeling energies in Florida. You can make some really cool storytelling. Sure.
They filmed it in New Smyrna, Florida.
See, thank you. New, and that's the thing too, is I doubted myself. I'm like, is it Florida? But it's such a distinct ecosystem that I'm like, no, this has got to be somewhere in Florida. And I was right. It's somewhere in Florida. Because it's like the vegetation, the way that the beach is set up, it's so distinct. And I think that's part of the strength of this movie is its location and where they filmed it creates a character in and of itself. But yeah, I really liked the story a lot. I thought it was creepy. I thought it was like a bit of cosmic horror, Lovecraftian horror.
That sense of stepping into this like alternate universe almost. And everyone is sort of in on something that you're not in on is such a creepy thing. I love that.
Yeah, like I was like a Rosemary's Baby moment where like everybody knows but you, and you're playing catch up the whole time.
Where they walk in the bar and everybody just stares at them, and they're
it's a great. It can be a really good storytelling device because it's your main characters, not just your main character. They're also an audience surrogate because we don't know what the hell's going on. Yeah. She doesn't know what the hell is going on, and while we catch up with her, and then sometimes if the movie's smart, we might know a little bit more than her, and then we're like, no, don't go there. You know what I mean? Like, don't do that. That's no. But I really loved that movie for that reason, and I think it was well made.
And the moment where she almost gets out, and then Richard Drake, the fucking.
This isn't top spoilers.
It's the top movie. We're talking about movies, Steven. We have to talk about the movies as much as we can.
We're trying to get people to watch the movies, not...
All right. Well, I just wanted to name drop Richard Brake in his amazing role because I love him in all things he does.
Okay, my number 8 is, and this is going to be a controversial one that I will get yelled at for. Halloween Ends, directed by David Gordon Green. And frankly, I don't even know if there's a good reason other than thirst. Like, I'm not even kidding. My number 8, a controversial choice to be sure, is Halloween Ends by David Gordon Green. And yes, as I said, I don't think there's any other reason, perhaps other than thirst.
It's insane for somebody who's not a fan of Halloween movies, who's not a fan of Michael Myers, to put a Michael Myers movie in their top 10.
It's a very weird, I think, Corey Cunningham as a character really impressed me. I think there was a lot of, I think it's important to reference, Halloween 3 is my favorite Halloween film because it has nothing to do with Michael Myers. But what's interesting about Halloween Ends is they were directly calling to Halloween 3. They were saying, hey, kids who liked Halloween 3, this Halloween is for you. From the usage of the original font for Halloween 3 to the way that they subverted the story and made it and sort of opened it up to different like aspects that you hadn't seen before. And I know for some traditional Michael Myers horror fans, this was a huge disappointment. There's not a coincidence that this movie was being called The Last Jedi of Halloween films, and it's my favorite Halloween
and precisely because people called it The Last Jedi of the Halloween franchise, did it become my number 5 favorite film of the year. Any film that could get people so angry
Yeah.
and so clearly missing the point of the movie just steals my heart.
For me, like, if I really hope that there are characters in this film that come back. I think you could start a whole new franchise.
It ends.
Do they want a whole new franchise? Do the fans want a whole new franchise? Probably not, but I know some people that do. That's me.
Listen, as a huge Halloween fan, as someone who loves Michael Myers and loves many of the Halloween movies, I loved Halloween Ends. I had it in my honorable mentions, and then I watched like 15 more movies and got kind of pushed out, but I still really loved it. It was the most unexpected Halloween movie. It really like subverts your expectations, and people get mad about not having enough Michael Myers. Like, you don't have enough Michael Myers in the last 11 movies.
11 movies, exactly.
This is like doing something different with a franchise tag is like my jam. I love it.
I will say, unlike The Last Jedi, I do understand the critiques a little more for this film in terms of Halloween has always been Michael Myers. So for a movie to sort of move beyond him, will upset them. However, I completely see what they were trying to do. Like, in my mind, in their best feelings, I think they were trying to set up a brand new franchise. And how interesting for that franchise to have dueling, the antagonist and the protagonist previously having a romantic relationship. That's fucking hot. Give me I know it will never end well.
That's the other thing. That's the other thing about from The Last Jedi to The Matrix Resurrections to this movie, all of those are romances.
Yes.
And that's another thing I think that makes the fan bros really pissed off.
Really angry.
Like, why is this romance in my Michael Myers movie?
Yeah.
But I love that. I love it. I also think there's something in this movie that it's not about Michael Myers, it's about evil. Like, that's what Halloween has always been about. And, evil has always been personified by Michael Myers. But this movie kind of makes that evil bigger than Michael Myers. And that evil can infect other people who then become these, like if it gets the right person at the right time, who like is in the wrong situation and just decide I'll just like become seduced by this evil. Then
Corey is such a yes, Corey. He's such an interesting character. Beyond the fact that I found him adorable, he's such an interesting and tragic character. And there's a part of me, if this wasn't the Halloween movies, I was like, could you save him? Could you save
I
Corey?
wanted him to be redeemed. That was my one flaw with the movie, is I thought I wanted a Corey Cunningham redemption.
And
it's so interesting, like it's so interesting how, what happens at the beginning is an accident, but there's a tinge.
Yeah.
Like when he kicks that door, he's pissed.
Yeah.
Like he gets mad, and like, so it's an accident. Yes, it's an accident. It's obviously an accident, but there's a tinge, just a hint of something was in there that made him kick that door really fucking hard.
Mm-hmm. Really not pull his punches.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's why
the complexity of that.
I was gonna say that's why it's my number 5. Is I think that was the most interesting way to start a Halloween movie.
Yeah.
That gave it like immense psychological weight to everything that Michael Myers has done to this town, and illustrating it in like a very real and like real life normal way.
Yeah, and also one of the biggest complaints people had was like how weak Michael Myers was, which like these people apparently didn't watch Halloween Kills, and the whole theme of like the way that Michael Myers gets his power is from killing people. And he's
Yes.
been hiding in this sewer for however many years and hasn't
Yeah.
killed anybody. And
Yep.
that's why he's so weak. And then he kills somebody, and you
He gets-
visually
yeah.
see his strength return to him. Like, did
Yeah.
you not watch the movies? Anyway.
And it gets to a point where, like, yeah, like if you know, the Halloween movies don't stay very far away from any overt supernatural themes, but you sit here as someone watching like the 11th Halloween, like,
Right.
something's not right about that Michael Myers. There is a demon in him somehow. And exactly, how does that demon get strong? Through blood. So like you said, the more blood, the stronger he is. And I think it makes perfect sense. Even if you're not going to overtly say that there's something supernatural about Michael Myers, you're going to imply it by saying, yeah, like, would he be okay if he was hiding in a sewer eating rats? Probably.
Yeah, right.
Like, you know, fucking around. No, he wouldn't be okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was I was very impressed by Halloween Ends, and yeah. So my number, let's move on to my number 7. I'm sorry. My number 7 is You Are Not My Mother, which we discussed, so we can move on. My number 6 is Glorious by Rebecca McKendry. And just simply because, speaking as a huge cosmic horror aficionado, this is some of the freakiest, weirdest, twistiest cosmic horror of the year. It's
and incredibly simple.
Yes, an incredibly simple concept. A man goes into a public bathroom at a rest stop.
Area
Bathroom, thank you. And there is a glory hole, and the glory hole begins to talk to him.
I wouldn't have spoiled that. I wouldn't have spoiled that because that's one of the coolest reveals in the whole movie. Like, oh, that's why it's called Glorious.
It's in the trailer though.
And it's the title.
And it's the title. So I don't.
Yeah, but I didn't know why it was called that.
Yeah.
Yo, well, hey, we saw the trailer. We knew what we were walking into.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were walking into the glory hole horror movie.
Yes.
And that's why I put it at number 3.
Whoa.
Wow.
It was so shocking. Rebecca McKendry, I've followed on Twitter for a long time now. I believe they're a professor and they teach horror.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think that they definitely earned a lot of horror cred for their execution of Glorious. And I think what I think is most profound about the movie to me is that I think like the way that they took something so cheap as a glory hole.
Yeah.
And just by giving it this very impressive and iconic voice that we know of J.K. Simmons and the weight of his performance
gives immediate gravitas
of his voice and the way that we just have to basically deal with his voice being the most sinister thing in the movie that keeps on adding tension and weight as the time of the movie progresses and like the walls start closing in on our protagonist, I think was a truly masterful horror work and
well,
so
not only that, but sorry.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
And so impressive that this is one of the many Shudder originals and exclusives that
they curated
and that just has fallen, like, you know, the general public does not know this movie even came out.
Yeah.
Nope.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and not just like, yeah, his not just the tension of his voice, but like his ability to, like, while being so deadpan but also having such incredible comedic timing because he's J.K. Simmons. Like, this is probably, like, I only know of 2 cosmic horror comedies in the known universe, this and Psycho Gorman. And they're both like 2 of my favorite. Like, I have this as an honorable mention, but I love this movie. I love the simplicity of the single location. you don't even see that much of the monster, really. It's just like in this bathroom stall, and you see
Film
like
that's very
little shots of it.
resourceful and with its
Exactly.
budget and with its effects.
This is another one that feels like it had like a micro budget.
Yeah.
Except for maybe J.K. Simmons. Like they probably spent like 80% of their money getting J.K.
And that's why they had him as a voice only.
But that's effective use of resources. I mean, to spend 80% of your budget and then to like use the rest to do this very simple thing. And J.K. Simmons' voice really holds it together.
It's true. It's a very skilled. You can see that they were very intelligent in understanding what they needed to give the movie a real, like you said, a real sense of consequence, and like not just that you would just like it's meant to be a comedy, but you could, if the voice of the glory hole monster was something so ridiculous, you would laugh this movie off. You wouldn't take it seriously. But to have that voice that's recognizable, but also just because of the skill of the actor, gives this real weight. You could see that they were like, this is one of the most, if not the most important part of the film. We have to get an actor that's going to be able to like make you want to keep listening to a hole in a bathroom stall. Yeah. And I really loved, another thing I liked about it, without giving too much away, is the idea of an unreliable protagonist. You know, like there's a lot, and the playing around with time. It's always such an interesting thing. So, and then again, because you have this very closed location, it gives them opportunity to do that with so little, with just a lighting change or some sound effects. And I think that's another thing that's really like people underestimate, is the power of sound editing for movies with small budgets. So reliant on good sound effects. Because they can't show you everything visually. They may not be able to pay for that, but they can make you hear it. They can make you feel it with like a rumble or an effect or a squelching noise. And it's such a vital thing to storytelling in horror.
What's your next pick, Dani?
My next pick, number 5, is Yule Log, which we discussed and we will continue to discuss after this podcast, but not now. And then my number 4, so this is like, I don't know if this is cheating, but I don't really care because I don't think it's cheating. This year, Guillermo del Toro dropped something called Cabinet of Curiosities, which was essentially 3 nights of horror movies. They were feature-length stories, episodes, basically. And they were fully realized horror movies.
They're like around an hour, so yeah. Like, I mean, that's technically full length, yeah.
It's technically full length. And 2 of those actually made it onto my list. And number 4 is The Autopsy directed by David Pryor. It's 59 minutes long. It counts as a movie. It's almost like most feature lengths, I guess, would be 90 minutes, but I think it counts.
Even if it's a short film, that's still a film.
Yeah. And it is
I love this movie, and it's definitely an honorable mention for me. The performances by F. Murray Abraham and Glynn Turman really, really are so captivating, and I think it's also one of the more creative horror movies of the year.
Yes, there's like it's such a, I think there is something that was really powerful about a lot of the stories that Guillermo chose to curate into this collection. But like, this is just so strong. It's so rare to that is just talking to each other and being able to attain a sense of menace in that conversation. So well done in this movie. I think just the concept of it is just so interesting. It really, I don't know, it's something like, it feels almost like a novel. I don't know if they interpreted this from like a book or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it feels way more emotional and deep than your standard high end anthology horror story, like there's definitely a lot of time and thought put into this story.
It was written by David S. Goyer, so maybe that's, you know, one of the benefits is he got in there. But like really, the gravity of the performance by F. Murray Abraham.
David Goyer was the writer for Chris Nolan's Batman's, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
and he wrote Blade, and he's written
a lot
everything.
of stuff. Yeah, so just this was really one of my favorites of the year. Effects wise, another movie that relies very heavily on a limited space, very few locations, set, you know what I mean, like, and focuses on performance between the characters. Yeah. And so moving on to my number 3 is Nope by Jordan Peele. I watched this, like, this is one of the movies that I watched like right around the end of the year because I kind of I waited for it. Unfortunately, I missed it in the theaters. I waited for it to come to streaming, and I'm so glad I got to see it before the end of the year. Another Jordan Peele joint, knocking it out of the fucking park. Wow, like I think what's great about Jordan Peele is that you can see him growing with every movie that he does. Every movie he does, he's building on his mythology, his repertoire, what he wants to talk about in terms of horror stories. And he's really just going for it. And I think this is like, it's so interesting to see. Like, I'd almost term it like a modern Western horror, which is such a strange thing to say. Like, we don't do a Western anymore. Like, Westerns don't exist in our day and age, but this is a Western. This is a horror, and it's so fascinating to see what he did. And I think that it has the reason why it made my top is because it has one of the most horrifying sequences of the year for me. Without giving too much away, is this the scene with a house in a rainstorm. And oh my God, like the sound, like, talk about sound editing. Sound editing was everything in that moment. And it made it so terrifying and like just so much to me. It was so good.
Yeah, Nope came out number 6 on my list. And I think it really stood out amongst all the other films this year because it had a deep horror mythology to it. And I liked how it built this mythology. And I really like horror movies that you think about parts of the movie that you thought were kind of innocuous, and then you realize just how horrifying they are, like, later, once, like, you're like out of the moment and processing it. And I think that's a really cool thing that he put in horror movies. I think what makes it a number 6 movie for me and not like a number 1 or higher is the resources. You know, Nope had freaking the entire eyes of the world on it after all the success Jordan Peele has had, and he has been given all of the opportunities, and he very much stuck the landing and made a great movie and didn't fall flat on his face. And I think that's a credit to all the great actors on the movie and the quality of Jordan Peele's filmmaking. I wonder if
we're becoming horror snobs, but not in that way, just in the way that, like, what did you do with that $10 million
yeah.
Oh yeah, 50 mil. Yeah. No, but seriously though, I don't know. Like, I think a lot of the stuff on my list, I really did take into consideration, like, what did they do with what they had? Obviously, Halloween Ends had a big ass budget, so we're not sitting here. That's not the reason why I liked Halloween Ends. It wasn't the big ass budget, you know. But yeah, like, and it's not to say that horror can't be great with big ass budget. Obviously not. Nope is number 3 on my list. I'm just saying that, like, it really impresses me now to see people do a lot with a little. I think especially with horror, because there's so much horror depends on a micro budget. Like, horror is not, no matter the reason why people, like, studios make horror is because it's cheap. They can knock it out. They can $5 million.
Cheap and reliable.
Exactly. People are gonna go see it. You can make a decent horror movie for under $10 million at a studio, and a studio budget of like 10 mil under. You get people butts in seats and they pay for it, and it makes its money back. So, like, to me, it's like, so a budget relies on small horror, but small budgets. But then there's horror that relies on smaller than small budgets. You know what I mean? And it's like, and they're doing a lot. And then there's horror that comes from like different countries that already are not working with the same, you know, resources that American horror films are working with ever. And I wanted to expand my palette like to like what really impressed me this year.
Also, Nope is awesome in that I left Nope and I was like, man, I really want to see the Scorpion King. So, big props to Nope for making me want to see the Scorpion King.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you talking about how it's kind of a Western, and like it reminds me of, so one of my favorite things is on Criterion Channel, they have this series called Adventures in Moviegoing, where they get different like famous or semi-famous people to curate a list of movies they want people to watch. And the Ethan Hawke one is one of my favorites, and he talks about, he put these two movies on there that he called anti-westerns, these westerns that sort of deconstruct the myth of the West and of the Western, and of like, you know, the sort of the idea that this is heroic in some way and not like genocide and, you know, all kinds of stuff. The two movies are the Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean, and there's this other one called what's it called? It's something about Buffalo Bill, and then there's like an alternate title that's like AKA Sitting Bull's Education or something like that. That like it just completely destroys this myth of the Western. And I feel like that's kind of what this is as well, like really like turning it on its head, maybe not deconstructing it, but like, you know, the idea that, yeah, there was like a ton of, you know, Black people involved in the making of the West and all of this stuff.
And I think it's also a great, you know, so a lot of like Hollywood basically has a genre of making movies about making movies.
Yeah.
And they always tend to focus on what writers, directors, producers. Jordan is to really take it and go, I'm going to explore the people you never talk about, the animal wranglers, the you know, the set people, like those people. These are the people we're going to talk about. And I think that's another brilliant way. He's playing in the Hollywood playground, but he's turning it on its head and playing with their stuff, but in its own way that's very unique. And I think
we're kind of blessed to be in an era where Jordan Peele is like one of a few like art house sort of auteurs that can kind of do whatever he wants at this point.
Yeah.
Him, like Robert Eggers maybe, and like a few other.
I
don't think it's fair to call Jordan Peele an art house auteur.
Well, maybe not art house, and you know,
he's only made studio films. Okay, so fuck him and his studio.
But yeah, Nope is one of my honorable mentions. It's probably the best hostile alien invasion movie I've ever seen. Which isn't a genre that I actually am not a huge fan. Like I like, you know, Independence Day and stuff like that, but like at this point I'm at a point where I'm like, I would much rather see the non-hostile alien invasion movie, the Arrival and stuff like that. Because like, why would an alien civilization that's so advanced come here just to like kill us and destroy us?
Well, it's also just like a lot of times with hostile alien movies, just slightly dip our toe into like, you know, critique, is that it's very much about the other being scary. So that gets in and of itself into very, you know, sort of problematic tones of the foreign horror, the other, the thing that's scary. And
that's what I love about Arrival. It's all about language and the barriers, and like translating.
But the thing about Nope, what's so interesting about Nope is that like Nope is okay. It's a hostile alien, but like hostile is, it's just so much. There's so much going on there, and they really dissect it more as like an animal versus a being just with malicious intent.
Right.
You know,
there's a level of intelligence.
What? No. There. Moving on. Spoiler film. No.
You went too far.
I went too far. Anyway, I think enough people have seen Nope at this point. Okay.
Sure, they probably did.
You could you want to bleep over all the things?
No, not at all.
My number 2, we talked about, is Hatching by Hannah Bergholm. And then my number 1 is my other Cabinet of Curiosities movie. It's actually 65 minutes, so it's even longer than Autopsy. And it is called The Outside, directed by Anna Lily Amirpour. And I love this director. I love her. I've seen her other films. I know she's done A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. And she's done The Bad Batch. She is someone to watch, in my opinion. She has just a very unique way of making stories. And The Outside, like, absolutely wrecked me. This was one of those movies that is horrible and funny, and also just, like, for me, just there really struck a very deep emotional chord. So I finished watching the movie, walked out. I turned off the movie and it was over, and I was crying. Not just because of, like, this sequence of, it's just, there's just something very deep and impactful about this story if you are a woman caught up in this idea of, like, beauty standards. And yeah, like, and I just think that this, first of all, it's a movie. The reason I love this movie is, one, it just has the color palette. Another movie that takes, really bright color palette and puts that, like, turns it on its head of, like, what you're gonna see. There's a body horror element to it. Body horror is another favorite genre of horror filmmaking of mine. There's comedy to it, and there's the real sense of the horror isn't even the body horror aspect, more the psychological reasoning why the characters doing the things that they're doing and what they want, and what it's going to turn them into. And it's just so good. Like, I think that I feel like it should be talked about more. I just feel like The Outside, like, is really, really strong. And if it had been, like, promoted and come out on its own as a movie, I feel like more and more people would be talking about it. Versus, like, because it came out with this sort of section of other films that people were just sort of watching. It's so gorgeous and harrowing and, like, sad, and funny.
Yeah.
I really need to watch Cabinet of Curiosities. I'm really excited to see, like, who he gets for the next round of these films.
And the chemistry between Kate Micucci and Martin Starr,
who are the two main characters,
who are the two leads in this movie, is just very fascinating dynamic, and I definitely put this in my honorable mentions of the year. What's left that we haven't talked about from my list? We've talked about Halloween Ends, my number 5. We've talked about You Are Not My Mother, my number 2. We talked about Glorious, my number 3. We haven't talked about Dashcam, which I put at number 4. I think that this is a very it seems like what happened with Dashcam, directed by Rob Savage, who also made the film Host in 2020 on Shudder, that received a lot of praise and acclaim. It feels like what happened with Dashcam was Rob Savage made a very daring artistic choice to cast a very controversial MAGA figure in the lead of this movie. And so I feel like some people feel like they can't watch or enjoy the movie because by watching or enjoying the movie,
they
somehow
feel like they're endorsing,
they are endorsing or supporting this MAGA person.
Which I, as someone who watched this movie, I can say this movie is not endorsing this person.
No, it really isn't.
It's really fucking not.
It's trying to understand her, but it's definitely not endorsing her. And anyway, like I didn't even have this in my honorable mentions, but it was in there for a while until I watched like every fucking movie you can imagine. I love this movie for like part of why I love it is like it sets up this really like I mean there's the people who watch it who are gonna be like on her side and rooting for her, but that's probably a minority. But it also like for the rest of us sets up this thing of like, oh my god, I want to see you die so hard.
Exactly. Like I'm sorry, I'm gonna be like this guy to the balls that this guy has to follow one of the top horror films of the year when in 2020, right? Yeah, 2020. One of the people were looking at him like, what's he gonna do next? He can do anything. And then he does this, and they get so angry at him and they turn on him on a dime.
And a lot of
without trying to understand him or the fact that he's probably still processing the pandemic and the lockdown, because now this is the second movie related to tangentially something about the pandemic, the lockdown, and COVID. Like this guy is dealing with this the way he knows how, and I think the ball's on him to do this and to subvert this idea that he's just gonna make this straightforward, like, you know what I mean? Like it's so
you hear him talk about it, he's like, you know, these people exist. We live in the same world with them. We can't get around that, and so you know maybe it's not a bad idea to like take a look and try to understand what the fuck is going on with these people a little bit, you know? And also like when you look at all the characters around her, like it's pretty clear that like it's not endorsing this behavior.
She is the definition of an anti-hero. She is an almost antagonistic protagonist. Like she is the arbiter of her own suffering.
And she plays like a fictionalized, played up version of herself.
And I feel like this movie shares a lot of DNA with Deadstream, which came out this year on Shudder, which I think Deadstream got a lot more attention than Dashcam because it was on Shudder. And Dashcam was on Hulu, which is not where you traditionally think about for horror films.
Even though Hulu has some
they have a lot of great stuff.
And I think that Dashcam is a better executed version of Deadstream with a more interesting and profound like statements to think about and process. And Deadstream was fun.
I like Deadstream,
It was a good movie. Big shout outs for all the great effects and execution, and that film deserves all the praise that it is getting. But for me, I'm a Dashcam guy, not a Deadstream guy.
I just also think, like you said, Derek, it's just so that movie does not put you in it puts you in a position where the majority of people who are going to watch this, they're going to be rooting for her to suffer, and she suffers.
Yeah, she does
in that movie. Like she is not getting off scot-free, and it's. I don't know. I almost wonder like if it's just so difficult for people to watch a movie where where the main character is so delightfully unlikable.
Yeah.
And I
loved how much I hated her. I know,
and I think that's sad because I feel like we lose out when you don't get to have stories where someone is delightfully unlikable. Like
in the right context where like the people around her are like, oh my god, what the fuck is wrong with you?
It's what is wrong with you? Something is wrong with you.
And Rob Savage is a fucking visionary. To see this person who is rapping this nonsense and being like, you know what?
She's gonna star in a horror movie.
Deserves to be cinema. Okay? That is a fucking genius. Okay?
I just think it's like it's all for me, it's always the opinion of it's okay to dislike something. It's okay to not want to watch it, but like you always feel like with the discourse around stuff like this, it just gets into this should never have been made, and it's like it's so dangerous to talk like that about, especially when it's like this isn't like he made a COVID disinformation horror movie where the villain is COVID and the evil town is China. You know what I mean? Like he didn't do that. Like that's not at all what this is. Like it feels like he very much understood who he was dealing with as a character and how he would put her in the film and how he would talk about this. And I don't think he ever tries to point at you and say you have to feel bad for her or you don't have to feel bad for her. You know what I mean? He never does that in the movie. It's very much you walk in and however you feel about this person is how you fucking feel about her, and that's it. You know what I mean? Like he never, like it's never a situation. She never lets up on who she is.
Right.
So it's like never a situation where she gets a little bit more sympathetic or a little bit more understand. No, she's who she fucking is. And you're like, oh my Jesus. You're either like insufferable. And
even in the worst moments of the movie, she's like making little comments that you're like, oh my God.
Maybe for some people they couldn't like the movie because they felt like she was too insufferable to watch, which I can understand that. But I understand that far more than I understand like, oh, he's a problem now. Cancel Rob Savage for making a movie with someone like this. I just think that's so unfair.
And then also too, it's very I don't know, it's very smart to have like the chat window going the whole movie.
Yes.
And you get a sense of what the reactions are to this and who her audience is.
The
chat drops out at certain points.
Surrogate. So every time she's acting disgusting or stupid, there's comments there that are like both berating her or supporting her.
Yeah.
And she is an audience. The chat is the audience surrogate. And I think that movie's going to be revisited in time when people kind of can like look at it from a distance and see that, and really understand that he is not promoting her philosophy at all. He's not putting this movie out there to be like, you should like her. He's very much telling a story about this is the world we live in. This is what we're dealing with. I'm going to make a horror movie with this person and just put him through the ringer. You know what I mean? Like, can you watch that? Can you handle that?
So that was my number 4 dash cam. My number 5 I mentioned was Halloween Ends. My number 6 was Nope. My number 7 is maybe not something. I went from like top to down. Is maybe not something that a lot of people will think of at the end of the year when they're thinking about horror movies, but it is definitely horror. I'm going with the Marvel special presentation, Werewolf by Night, Marvel's first official foray into the horror film genre, directed by
definitely a horror movie
by esteemed composer Michael Giacchino, another first-time filmmaker who made a magnificent horror movie. I think it's only like 47 minutes.
Yeah.
But it is exactly the amount of time that it deserves to be, and is the proper time for telling the story. It has, this great feeling of old school horror by being in black and white. And yet,
and not just that, but like it's very much an homage to the classic like Universal horror.
It is.
Monster, like with the way the shadows play and like the look and the feel of it, it's very much an homage to that.
And it's like, okay, so we obviously can't sit here and go, poor Michael Giacchino working with this small budget company. Like we can't, we obviously can't sit there and say that. Like he has the biggest of the big behind him. He's got the mouse in his house. But I think then it's what to focus on is one, the fact that this is his first time directing. I think two, just also what they choose to do. This very cool homage to, like you said, Universal monsters, to old black and white horror, and the creatures that are the creatures that are featured in the story. They're so much fun, and there's some really cool design of like the werewolf is a really awesome design. I think I was impressed.
Yeah, and it's both old school and like it feels very modern.
Yeah,
and it also feels like the hardest part is that this has to also fit into the Marvel universe, which we already know and is established. I think that they married it well. And there's rumors that there's gonna be like a different sort of horror Marvel story coming out every Halloween. Is the room is a edition we get to enjoy.
I just think it was nice for Marvel, for the Marvel Cinematics, for the Marvel Studios to do something that isn't in the tradition of like the really overly saturated color corrected kind of stuff they've been doing, and actually play around with perspective and, you know, and filmmaking, and try something a little bit different for them. I think that's very cool. I think that you know, they owe a little, maybe you know, Spider-Verse Into the Dark. Is it Into the Dark?
Into the
Spider-Verse. Thank you. That's the musical. I just married two things together. Separate things. Into the Spider-Verse, I think maybe gave them a little bit to think about in terms of like how you can do really interesting visual stuff with superhero movies. And I appreciate, so if that, you know, if that's kind of why they got into, oh, we should do more things like this, I really hope so. And it was good.
My number 8 is the Hulu film, another film put out by the House of Mouse, bro. House of Mouse got 3 movies in the top 10 horror movie list for me. Barbarian, freaking Prey, and Werewolf by Night. Damn, boy. Freaking Prey, directed by Dan Trachtenberg, who directed the sequel to Cloverfield, 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Which was good.
Which was just such a fantastic film. Dan Trachtenberg is a nerd among nerds who gained fame and fortune for his YouTube short. I think it was called Party at Princess Leia's House. And there have been so many Predator sequels, and
they have not been good.
And some of them are really bad, and some of them are not good. And
it's true.
And he made one that is classy
and good.
It's good. It's entertaining. It's somehow extremely modern and yet extremely timeless. And he didn't even call his movie Predator. He called it Prey. He like sort of buried the lead a little bit. You know, you kind of need a nerd to tell you, yo, this is a Predator sequel. I think my only beef with the movie is that he didn't make the Predator sexy enough.
Yes, I agree.
And I don't like the ugly redesigned Predator.
I don't know
face.
if that's all his decision making, but yes, I feel like the Predator design, I think they were going for something more old school, I guess, like previous, like the Predators that we've seen have always been in like modern times. So I guess their logic was he's pre those Predators. But then it's like, well, then how quickly do they evolve? Because like they're just getting more and more humanoid, like with every generation. Like it's not that long before.
Well, and also the fact that he has like these like laser weaponry and shit, but then he doesn't like have armor and he has a bone mask. Like
they're going for the fact that the Predators have evolved, and maybe this explanation is the more Predators interact with humanity,
right,
the more they evolve. Because humans are evolving so quickly and they get weaponry that's more advanced. So maybe that's the reasoning. But yeah, like aside from the design of the face of the Predator, Prey is a great movie. And I think it's just what I'm so happy is I finally see a Predator movie that understands the potential of just every Predator movie, which is like, you could do Predator with anything. You could just make it as cool as you want. You could do a Predator movie set in ancient Rome. You could do a Predator movie set in like freaking, I don't know, New Zealand with Maori people. You know how like they had that show on, I think it was like FX or whatever, where they were like this guy versus this guy, warrior versus warrior, and they took like two different warriors from different, but Predator. That is what I want. That is cool as hell. That is so
Predator versus Michael Myers.
That is sequels upon sequels of interesting stuff. Just look at that show, Warrior versus Warrior, and just take all of those and write a Predator in one of them. because that's what they did, and I really loved the Amber Midthunder played Naru, the main character. She's so good, and props to her dog. I forgot his name, but props to the dog actor because he was a rescue dog. He was not a dog actor. He has not been training his whole life for this. They found him and they rescued him, and they had to work with him, and they did such a good job. And I always think that that's so impressive when they can. This is the second movie I've heard of now where they took a rescue animal, not like a trained, purebred, generations long dog actor, and they took like raised from puppydom to be a dog actor. This is the second. I think it was Love and Monsters, right? Is the other one. Love and Monsters is another movie. They took a rescue dog and they trained them to be a dog actor, and I think that that's so cool. And I loved Prey for that.
My last pick, which I haven't mentioned, my number 9, is from Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. It is called Graveyard Rats, and it's directed by Vincenzo Natali, which he directed the very thought-provoking film Splice.
Splice.
And he's got he's got plenty of horror cred. And I thought Graveyard Rats had the qualities that I like most in films this year, where they took concepts that were sort of very B and exploitation and elevated them to like the greatest heights. And Graveyard Rats is a period piece about a grave digger who makes side money taking jewelry from corpses, as long as he can beat the rats before they get to the jewelry and get to the corpses. And it has some of the wildest creature effects that I've ever seen, and was super fun and shocking and surprising.
Very claustrophobic.
And was a lot of fun. And I hope that Netflix does another season of Cabinet of Curiosities.
I think they are, because I think it was pretty well received. I really hope they do.
Because it's really cool to give all of these great horror directors the opportunity to have a very sizable budget. It looks like to me every movie. Some of my
favorite horror have been where they work on horror anthologies for TV shows. The traditionally, like, they've done that, and they did that years ago. I think with Showtime.
Yeah,
Masters of Horror. One of those was so controversial it never got aired, which was Takashi Miike's film, of course.
Of course.
Oh, Takashi. But yeah, like Masters of Horror, like I love anything that does that. I miss that, and I think that it's always good when someone tries to bring it back, because anthology horror like this is so with these budgets from these premium cable streaming services. It's another way for people to see really cool, interesting filmmaking being done by horror directors.
Yeah, and good on Guillermo del Toro for fucking giving these people a platform.
And I have 2 honorable mentions that I have not yet mentioned.
You said number 9. What was your number 10?
My number 10 was, I already said number 10.
Oh, that's right. You did say no, your number 10.
I already said number 10. My number 10 was the same as your number 10, I think.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Barbarian. Okay, never mind. All right, move on.
Yes. My 2 honorable mentions that we haven't talked about at all are the first one is Scream. I really liked. I think this is a really great Scream sequel that we got. I wish it was called Scream 5, but it's just called Scream. So everyone has to be confused. But I think it really stood out to me because it has, I think, my second favorite killers in a Scream movie. I love the dynamic between the killers. Not to spoil anything, there are killers, and it is really fun, and it's a well executed sequel.
Here's why I like Scream 5. Scream. Scream, the new Scream.
The requel.
But beyond the fact that it's really fun, and like you said, I love the killers, I think it cements Rian Johnson as an icon. And that's so funny to me. Like, I don't know if anybody outside the Twitter sphere / Hollywood land, La La Land, gives a shit about what happened with The Last Jedi and the reaction to it and all that stuff like that. But within but within the social media sphere, within the La La Land sphere, what happened with The Last Jedi has been rippling as an effect since 2017. It has been insane what has happened, the reaction to that film, the way people have felt about it, whatever. And so for now to get a horror movie that literally says, you know what's fucking scary? Dissecting that.
The entitlement of fandom.
Like, exactly. Like, it's I think beyond anything, beyond even, you know, the dreaded Gamergate or whatever. Like, fuck that. Like, The Last Jedi cemented people understanding how toxic fandom can be, and how and that. And obviously we've had other examples of that. But like, seriously, like the lightning bolt of The Last Jedi into fandom culture and into like everyone talking about it, to just to have to make an entire movie basically dissecting that is both brilliant and insane that even
it was sort of the catapult and the catalyst for them saying, oh, let's finally release the Snyder cut. You know, the fucking hordes of Snyder fans, Snyder bros, like they got so loud after Last Jedi.
They did.
But yeah, I mean, that's definitely true. The sort of backlash of entitled fans feeling owner. We talked about this for Matrix Resurrections, like the sense of ownership and entitlement that people have over, like, you know, when a new piece of their favorite thing comes out and they're like,
and it's such a difficult, you know, it's a difficult conversation because I don't want to say, you know, the people that made this popular, you don't want to say, okay, you know, you shut up and just deal with it, you know. But at the same time, it's like, there's also the conversation of like, well, how far is too far with what you love? How far is too far with the way you treat the people creating the things that you feel like you own, but you actually don't? Like, you know?
Yeah.
And my last honorable mention is a movie that is listed as a 2020 movie, but I feel like this movie got lost in the cracks of all the other great movies. This is another Shudder film that you can watch on Shudder right now. It's called Anything for Jackson, and it is directed by Justin G. Dick, and
I think it's Dyke.
Justin G.
I'm D-Y-C-K. That's usually pronounced Dyke, right? Or is it Dick?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
But
whether your name is Dick or Dyke, please don't be offended.
Sorry, man.
Both of versions of your name apparently sound like like curse words.
I'm sorry, man.
Watch, his name is like, my name is Duke. You're dumb. You know nothing. The reason why this movie really captured my imagination is that it takes, unlike X, which just has creepy old people in it.
Mm-hmm.
So when they do stuff that's creepy, it's like, okay, they're creepy old people.
Mm-hmm.
Anything for Jackson takes two very normal looking older people and makes them, you know, the greatest horror characters of the 21st century. It has this, brings out this beautiful, like, the banality of horror, and when you do something really horrifying but you do it because you think that you're doing the right thing, and nothing is going to break that from you, and you're trying to do it in the most horrific thing in the most polite way possible, is just like so creepy and fucked up.
It's a movie about like turning your grief into a bad guy, because that's basically what happens. Is this couple's grief is what drives them to do these horrible things, and to be so committed to it, so that as they are, you know, putting upon this poor person that they've kidnapped, it's like you can't, like, like, it just, there's no, it's so amazing because like they establish very early on in the story, like, there is no convincing them to change their minds. There is no shaking their resolution and their faith, they've decided this is the way that it has to be. What I really loved about this movie was also the fact that, you know, so a lot of times when you do like jump scares or like moments, they pop out, they go away and they don't get repeated, or they don't, you know what I mean? Like they don't become like, there's this, I don't want to give it away, but there's this really amazing consequence to what they're doing that sort of just starts to create this background soundtrack of terror in the house. And it's the best way I can describe it without totally just giving away what it is. And it's so creative. I haven't seen lots of movies do that, where they're like, no, like you've created a tear and the tear is just gonna like, the tear is still torn. And it's really cool. And I really liked that about the story.
There's a thing,
yeah.
Eraserhead, David Lynch's Eraserhead. I heard somewhere that there's like a barely discernible, like very low tone that's just constant throughout that movie and just like makes you uneasy.
Well, this is the thing. That's what's interesting, is this isn't sound design. This is literal like action in the story.
Okay.
That is, you have to see it. Like you have to understand.
No, I don't want to. Don't spoil.
I think it's one of the stronger moments in the film, so I don't want to like tell what it is. But yeah, I really like that movie too. It's really good.
Do you have any other honorable mentions?
My honorable mention was Smile, which probably would have made my list had not the ending. I felt the ending was weak.
Agreed.
But I really think the meditation on like mental illness and trauma was pretty terrifying. Yeah, and cycles of trauma. And then I don't know if this counts. This movie.
Count it.
Okay.
This is underrated. It's another 2020
It's
movie.
underrated movie. I think I got lost in the pandemic shuffle, and it's called The Stylist by Jill Gavarzian. She made a short film years ago that I actually watched based off this character, and then she finally made she got to make a feature-length film, and I think it is so good. It's in the vein of like a May, so very much a meditation on a very lonely woman looking for acceptance, looking for love, looking to sort of be anyone but herself. And it's good. It's about a woman who's a hairstylist who covets her clients' hair and like, and who covets her clients' lives as she cuts their hair. I think it's really good. I think I want to bring more attention to female horror directors, because I really feel like they've been knocking it out of the fucking park and they deserve that attention on them. I love the main character in the story. She's a great slasher. She's a great female slasher. And I think that this deserves like way more eyes on it for people to sort of explore it and watch it and understand it. And
this was one of the movies that when we watched it this year, it was one of the few movies that I was like, I hope the ending is this.
Yeah.
And then it was almost exactly that, and I was like, wow, this is great.
And it was like great. It's like one of those movies where like you want it to go one way and it doesn't. It's not upsetting or disappointing. It's like, oh, this is the payoff that's just the best. Like this is the good payoff. And I really and a great use of color in that film as well.
Big shout outs to Jill Gervazigan. The Stylist. Any final honorable mentions, D-Rock?
I have a few, yes, and it's a good transition from wanting to lift up female directors, because that's one of the reasons I have so many honorable mentions, is because there's so many great movies that came out this year by female directors. I'll just jump right in and try to sort of lightning round it a little bit here. My first is Allegoria by Spider One, who was the lead vocalist of Power Man 5000, which is really interesting. He made this really cool meditation on like narcissistic tortured artists who allow themselves to become consumed by their art, and it's really, the creature design is really awesome.
Ooh.
Sissy by Hannah Barlow and Kane Senes. This movie, I feel, does social media self-victimization culture way better than Bodies, 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 in my opinion, which I thought was sort of caricatures of Gen Z that felt like it was a little too, like, I have my problems with Gen Z, but this movie goes so hard. Not the Bodies, Bodies, Bodies goes so hard on Gen Z, and I was like, man, these people sound like Twitter comment threads. Christmas Bloody Christmas. I know that Steven and Danny didn't like this movie as much as I did, but Christmas Bloody Christmas by Joe Begos. I'm not sure how this pronounced. Really cool concept, and in my opinion, some of the best dialogue and the best delivery in a horror movie in 2022.
And the best, some of the best lighting. Like,
Lighting,
Yeah,
it
yes.
is
the
just
sort of neon punk
Visually
aesthetic.
stunning. Yeah.
Yeah,
Lush.
I love.
Yeah. Like
Uh,
it has Christmas lighting, but I don't just mean that because it has Christmas lights. Like the way that they shot it, it was so
yeah.
pretty. It was a
Yeah,
pretty.
no, I mean, from what I've heard, Joe Begos has this sort of neon punk aesthetic to a lot of his films, which
That's
is
awesome.
next I have Watcher by Chloe Okuno, which is this really great, just sort of classic Hitchcockian stalker thriller with some amazing performances. The the main antagonist, played by the guy who is one of the scientists in Pacific Rim, not the one from It's Always Sunny, but the other guy. You know who I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, I know you're talking
The
about.
like German guy. And he's fantastic. Um, Next, I have The Apology by Alison Starr Locke. This really awesome, tense, claustrophobic revenge thriller with also some really great performances. She Will by Charlotte Colbert is this really artsy, artful, sort of ambiguous, witchy, slow burn that I really enjoyed, with an amazing lead performance. It's just like spellbinding. Um, Saloum by Jean-Luc Herbulot. Herbulot. I don't know exactly. It's this really like fast-paced African mercenary revenge horror movie that I really enjoyed. Um, Next, I have Mad God by Phil Tippett. Is just a fucking stunning achievement
That is
of,
a
stop motion animation, amazing imagery, some really interesting commentary. I love that it has no dialogue whatsoever. It's basically a silent film, but with like sound. And I love that. Um, Next, I have Hellbender by John and Zelda Adams and Toby Poser. This really awesome, fun, ferocious, sort of witchy coming of age movie. Next, I have Bones and All by Luca Guadagnino. Sort of coming of age cannibal road movie that also sort of serves as like a queer allegory for like being outcast by everyone, including your own family, and the things you have to do and the people you meet along the way when that happens. Next, I think it's pronounced Titan because it's French, directed by Julia Ducournau of Raw.
these aren't honorable mentions. This is an honorable whole list.
Yes, it is. It's so many honorables. There's so many honorable movies this year. I had to like name drop everything because everything was so good. I watched so many movies. Titan was like technically a movie from last year, but it didn't come out on Hulu until this year, so I just included it. Julia Ducournau is like the queen of body horror at this point, and this movie also kind of has a thread of being sort of a tacit trans coming of age allegory in a way, but also it's about having sex with cars, which is awesome. Um, and then my last but not least honorable mention, The Sadness by Rob Jabaz from Taiwan. Now, I don't know if he's from Taiwan, but the movie is from Taiwan. This is just like, this has to be the most disgusting, depraved movie
I've heard things.
I've ever seen, and at the same time, like, really super well done. It has a thread of commentary that ties the whole thing together that is really awesome. But like, yeah, it's just a blood orgy, and like, you know, at times literally. So that is my list of honorable mentions.
Awesome.
And that has been our top 10 horror films for 2022, plus our honorable mentions. It has been a fantastic year. Derek, you have another top 5 you want to go through?
Yeah, I'd like to just quickly run through my non-horror top 5, including a couple of honorable mentions also. There's so many.
No
no.
more honorable mentions.
Just
No, I'm not
top
gonna
five.
talk about it. I'm just gonna go through them. The Northman by Robert Eggers, Violent Night by Tommy Wirkola, Moonfall by Roland Emmerich, the ultimate Roland Emmerich movie. I love that shit. Number 5, The Wonder, directed by Sebastian Lelio. Number 4, Glass Onion, directed by Ryan Johnson. Hell yeah. Number 3, RRR, directed by SS Rajamouli. Amazing Bollywood madness. And the top 2 are probably 2 of the best movies I've ever seen in my life. The Worst Person in the World by Joachim Trier, and Everything Everywhere All at Once, directed by the Daniels, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert. And that's it.
I'm not prepared to make any sort of top non-horror movie list, but I will say that I watched Everything Everywhere All at Once today, and I spent about an hour and a half crying afterwards. So I'm going to just say that if you have any undealt with family issues, especially if you are the eldest daughter, an immigrant child, an ethnic child, maybe don't watch this movie until you're emotionally prepared for the ramifications of dealing with that stuff, because it's pretty heavy, man. It was pretty heavy. Do not, very heavy, beautiful movie, gorgeous action, really well done, and the performances just wow. Is Stephanie, I think the daughter Stephanie too, she's one to watch. I hope I see her in like so much more stuff, because she was really freaking good. But Kei Kwan is gonna get tons of awards, and he deserves it.
He won I think a Screen Actors Guild Award.
He deserves.
He gave an amazing speech.
He deserves awards so much for being like the heart of that film, and it's brilliant. And like, he's a character that I identified with the most, like in terms of like what he believes and how he like lives and like runs the world. But the relationship stuff between the mother and daughter destroyed me emotionally. So be prepared.
It's just like, when people talk about the magic of cinema, I don't know how many other movies I've ever seen that encapsulate the idea of the magic of cinema quite like Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, it really lives up to its title. It's so many different things. It's so many genres. It's so magical in so many ways. It's just one of the best movies I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I think objectively speaking, it is probably the best film of the year. But not objectively speaking, the Adult Swim Yule log.
Yeah.
Best movie. With all respect to the Daniels.
With all respect.
With all respect. I have been your host, Steven.
I've been Dani.
And I have been the They of Theys, D-Rock. Full-time. Trials of Trivia.
Full-time champ. And check us out on Twitter at Vundacast. We are available on all podcast platforms, and we are available on YouTube. If you just search Vundacast or Vundacast Productions, it'll come right up. It's been a great year on the Vundacast. We ended the year strong. We're very thankful to anyone who's joined us along this journey this year, and we hope that you'll stick around for all the weird things that we're probably going to talk about in 2023.
Let me tell you, we are already in the planning stages of the 2023 Vunda Halloween-a-thon. All these movies that we've been talking about, I'm already shuffling into categories, and not like planning, but like I've been shuffling these movies.
Derek's saying this, and me and Steven are looking at you like, what? What? I'm just trying to get through the end of tonight.
Very early planning stages, but yeah, no, I mean like Adult Swim Yule log could be on like half of the days of Vunda Halloween-a-thon. We were just talking about that, so should be a fun year, 2023.
Unless we make a niche day where it's just like wood-based horror.
Oh, I'm already coming up with new categories too.
No, there's stuff in there. You can
Culinary chills.
Wow. Remember, kids, when you're making your top 10 lists of horror movies of 2022, although your minds have been addled by Marvel movies, Violent Night is not a horror movie.
No.
No.
I've seen so many people put Violent Night on their top horror movies. No. It is an action movie.
It is an action movie.
It's just gory, but like there's gory action movies.
Thirst trap for any woman who wants to fuck Santa Claus. Or anyone who wants to fuck Santa Claus, really.
Or David Harbour.
He, she, they. If you want to fuck Santa,
David Harbour, shirtless scene. You heard it here first.
David Harbour, I literally had a flashback today thinking about that movie, and I just like stopped thinking mid-sentence. I was like, him sucking on that candy cane. Oh yeah. Oh, Violent Night. Violent Night is Die Hard with Santa Claus. Yes. Okay, let us be real.
Yep.
Down to the plot where he is estranged from Mrs. Claus. So if you're putting this on your horror movie list, you're trying to say that Die Hard is a horror movie, and you are stupid. I'm sorry, I'm saying it. I will be flat out. You are wrong. You do not understand films, and you need to go back to the drawing board. I don't care if I get canceled. This is not a horror movie. It is not designed to horrify you.
No,
it was not filmed in such a way as to scare you or terrify you. Just because there are scary things happening like a home invasion, that doesn't mean anything. That's just an event in the film to get to the part where Santa Claus makes a shiv out of a candy cane and attacks you.
It's just as dumb as people saying Nope is not a horror movie. That's such a maybe you didn't find it scary, but it's a horror movie. I'm sorry.
Nope is a horror film. It is designed to be a horror film.
Yes.
It is designed the way that it is designed. It is a horror film. People need to stop. Look, I get it that many films kind of bleed into other genres, but some things are designed to be what they are. The movie's called Violent Night, not Scary Night, not Terror Night. All right, it's called Violent Night. The man literally, I swear to God, he almost at one point says, "I am too old for this shit." Okay, word for word, like. He is a mix of like Bruce Willis, Danny Glover, he's all of these action movie tropes. That's the point of the film. Yeah. It's actually what you're looking for is a satire on action filmmaking through way of Santa Claus.
Right.
Okay? That's what it is. It's not a horror movie.
I also, since we're still on a podcast right now, And the podcast didn't end.
I just got mad. You made me mad saying that.
I think part of the reason why I didn't enjoy Christmas, Bloody Christmas as much. Oh no. Was because I saw it the same day as I saw Violent Night. And all of the kills in Violent Night were so Christmas to me. And they were also Christmas themed that I was disappointed in Christmas, Bloody Christmas.
Yeah, I was disappointed that the Christmas
that they didn't have as creative, I feel, of kills with their Santa.
I agree.
Well, their Santa isn't meant to have a personality the way that Violent Night is, you know?
Yeah.
And remember, kids,
Violent Night is not a horror movie.
That's what she said.
Hey, Vunda.
Vundacast? Give it up for Vundacast, man. What an adorable name.
You're listening to the Vundacast.
What's up, everybody? This is Jason David Frank, Green Ranger. You're listening to Vundacast.
You can find it at Vundacast, and I know they love Effie.
Subscribe to the Vundacast.